We see your slide, so you can begin.
Perfect. So the agenda for today. So we have packed agenda. As you can see on the slide, we'll start a quick introduction about Microsoft Security, the cyber kill chain that is based on Security Center, and then we cover a lot of features of Security Center. But the most important that there are a lot of topics and features for this Azure Security Center, and this session is more toward the hybrid workload, what's deployed in on-premises or on other cloud, because it's difficult to cover within 1 hour and a half all the capabilities and feature for Azure Security Center. So those topics here, starting with we have a lot of demos, as you can see, most of them 10 demos. None of them are recorded, so everything is live. So hopefully the demos will work great. And yep, this is the last 10 demos for starting with everything based on on-premises workload. Good. So quick introduction for the Microsoft Security. I believe everyone attending the session knows that Microsoft focus on security does not get unnoticed. The media covers the Microsoft initiative everywhere. And as you know, threats have become more sophisticated, from a single actor, insider to organized destructive attacks by crime, in syndicates and nation states seeking financial gain or political objectives. So Microsoft stands for trust, and more than ever, Microsoft is making investments to keep us all secure, and is committed to delivering cloud-based services that deliver best-in-class security, privacy, and reliability. So I have often get asked by customers how Microsoft can prove that it's really truly committed to security. The best answer I can tell you that Microsoft run their business and the same multi-tenant cloud services as we run our businesses as well. So if Microsoft is not focused on security and privacy in the cloud, then of course they are threatening the future of the company. Cybersecurity in the news. We have seen a lot of news in this today world and the cloud first world, that everything is connected together. It's clear that increasing trust and managing security is something many organizations and individually deeply struggle with. So as you can see in this, the number on the slide, more than 50 million, the average annual amount companies pay as a result of cybercrime. Over 1 million new pieces of malware are created each day. As a matter of fact, there is, you can see and see on the news, that there are a lot of malware as a service and ransomware as a service, where you can auto-host their ransomware code on a portal, and then where affiliates can easily deploy it from a dashboard. Everything is becoming as a service. And also 140 plus days identify that between infiltration and detection on average, taking to an organization to discover that really get compromised. And as a result of the cost of the global market are staggering, over 3 trillions in productivity and market growth destroyed last year due to security breaches alone. So these numbers show that lack of security hygiene. You hear a lot about security hygiene, security postures caused many companies to be compromised. There are a lot of studies and statistics out there that have been done show the lack of basic security hygiene caused data breaches, which could have been avoided by doing our base homework. So what is our base homework? It means that all security controls and recommendation and best practice are in place. Security hygiene should be the #1 priority for every organization to take. And when I hear of major attack and talk to companies, whether it be customer, partner, or service provider, I have always 2 questions. What we can collectively learn from this attack, and how can we help? So technology is the plane in which these attacks have occurred, while at the same time, it's the plane in which they can be fought. So improving your defense against threats. The only way to align actually the needs to have a stronger security hygiene in conjunction with threat detection is to correlate these famous 3 pillars, which are part of the same life cycle. So most organizations have this approach that looks at how to protect, detect, and respond. So this model hasn't changed in the last 20 years or so. The basics still matter, of course. However, what has changed at Microsoft is how they do them. So when you hear about security posture, we are talking about these three major pillars: the protection, detection, and response. The protection is actually the proactive work. What you do prior to something happen. You have been diligent and you did your base homework on making sure you are addressing all security recommendation. For example, Microsoft look at how to appropriately secure identity, data, application, devices, and infrastructure, whether it be on the cloud or on premises. And this requires an approach to security that consider all your endpoints from the sensor to your data centers. The detection, on the other hand, is the reactive work. Is what you have done all your homework. Now you are monitoring to see if something bad is happening, if you will get compromised or not. In the past, they used to rely on malware signature and definition to recognize threats. Now we need intelligence, behavior-based approaches to threat detection that can rapidly recognize entirely new threats. They need to be able to use those insights to immediately act on them. And if you get compromised, then you need to quickly respond. And here it comes the third pillar, response. So you need to also have an instant response and automation in place to take action as quickly as possible to reduce the damage that was caused by that compromise. So doing this well means assuming breach at any point and continue operating with this readiness mentality. So going hybrid or to the cloud can resolve a lot of these issues and can address a lot of these concerns. Microsoft have vast resources and did a lot of investment to manage global data centers, data security talents, and global security experts to provide compliance for those data and the infrastructure. And that compliance can then be inherited by the client to the cloud. So with those security experts and with the global geographic scale, Microsoft can understand and detect new emerging threats quickly and help you protect your resources against those threats. So that's a big point of why people are considering the cloud, and security is now becoming a benefit of adopting the cloud, whether hybrid or multi-cloud approach. So however, it's important to know that just because you are in the cloud doesn't mean you don't have responsibility to secure your resources. So how Microsoft think of this shared responsibility model? And this slide actually shows the way how Microsoft is constructing these three components of security as we think of protecting cloud and hybrid resources. The number one, this is something a cloud provider, any cloud provider that you work with should give you this, and this is what Microsoft keep investing in. Is the security foundation, the foundation that lets you build your application, data resources, and your business in a secure way. That foundation is managed by Microsoft, and because it's managed by Microsoft globally for Azure, you are able to reduce cost and complexity. Then the second component of it is as you build your application and resources, and you start putting your workload in Azure, Microsoft provides you with the built-in controls, built-in tools, but configuring that security and configuring those controls is your responsibility. So this is what we call the shared responsibility model. So where secure foundation infrastructure security is managed by Microsoft that can help protect your resources, but then those controls that Microsoft provide is your responsibility to manage and configure. And lastly, the most important part of it is this unique intelligence. What Azure and Microsoft do are able to process trillions of signals across various services like Office 365, Azure, Windows services, and to all of that, Microsoft synthesis of those signals and give you actionable insights. Those insights are integrated into products and services that you may get familiar with. And how does that help you? Because with those insights and signals, you can move ahead, and with those emerging threats, you can detect these threats early as possible And with augmented tools such as Azure Sentinel or Azure Security Center, Microsoft Defender ATP, just to name a few of those security solutions, you are able to respond to threats as quickly as possible. So the most important to note here as well that security is not a tool or product. It is a set of processes that should be aligned to the business and evaluated on a continuous basis. It's not for every security you need to get to buy a product. You need to evaluate and make sure it's tied to your business. One of the most important about understanding the intention of attack is to understand the cyber kill chain, where actually Security Center is based on this cyber security chain, kill chain. So in Security Center, threat protection includes a fusion kill chain analysis, which automatically correlates alerts in your environment based on this cyber kill chain analysis to help you better understand the full story of an attack campaign, where it started, and what kind of impact it had on your resources. So Security Center supported kill chain intent are based on the very famous meter attack framework. There is also another popular framework which called Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, which have slightly different steps, but they are very similar. So Security Center is based on the meter attack framework. As shown in this slide, the typical 8 steps that trace the stages of a cyber attacks are reconnaissance up to the stage 8 exfiltration. So in the reconnaissance stage, attacker assess your network and services to identify possible targets and technique to gain entry. In the intrusion stage, attacker use that knowledge gained in the reconnaissance phase, in the first step, to get access to a part of your network. This often involves exploring a flow or security hole. The third stage, exploitation, where this phase involved exploiting vulnerabilities and inserting malicious code onto the system to get more access. Then the stage 4, where privileged escalation comes into game, where the attacker often try to gain administrative access to compromise system so they can get access to more critical data and move into other connected system in your environment. Here, where the lateral movement come into the stage 6, stage 5. This is actually the act of moving laterally to connected servers and gain greater access to potential data. And then step 6, where also obfuscation, also known anti-forensics. So the attacker try to pull off of cyber attacks. So attackers need to cover their entry. They will often compromise data and clear audit logs to try to prevent detection by any security operation team. And then also they move to stage 7, denial of service, when this phase actually involves disruption of normal access for users and system to keep the track from being not monitored, tracked, and blocked. And the final stage, which is the exfiltration, where the attacker will try to get valuable data out of the compromised system. So Security Center is designed around this 8 steps of the kill chain, and threat protection capability enables you to detect and prevent threat at the infrastructure IaaS layer, non-Azure servers, as well as platform as a service, PaaS service in Azure. And most often when you hear non-Azure, this means that workload could be in your data center, on premises, private cloud, for example, or in other cloud environments such as Amazon AWS or Google GCP. Moving on about the Security Center quick feature. Actually, what is Azure Security Center? Security Center provides you with a centralized view of your Azure and non-Azure resources and their active security state. It provides integrated security monitoring and policy management across your Azure subscription, which can help detect threats that might otherwise go unnoticed, and work with a broad ecosystem of security solutions. These solutions are delivered through following capabilities. The prevention, where Security Center actually monitors the state of your Azure and non-Azure resources based on how you configure the security policies, which is part of the governance of your organization, application, and data. Then detection, where Security Center automatically collect and analyze security data from your resources and workload, such as the network, hybrid servers, which are imported to Security Center, and partner solutions like anti-malware and firewalls. It takes advantage of global threat intelligence from the Microsoft product and services, the Microsoft Digital Crime Unit, and the Microsoft Security Response Center, MSRC, as well as from external feeds. And then response. Security Center also provides you with the prioritized security and incident alerts. It offers insight into the source of an attack and any impacted resources, along with suggestions for how to stop the current attack or incident and help you to prevent future attack. The most important part of the heart of Security Center lies in its recommendation. You hear about security recommendation, which is the resource security hygiene of your environment. The recommendations are tailored to the particular security concern found on your workloads, and Security Center plays the role of the security admin work for you, but not only finding your vulnerabilities, but providing you with specific instructions for how to get rid of them and remediate them as quickly as possible. So in this way, Security Centers enable you to not just to set security policies, but to apply security configuration standards across your entire resources. The security recommendations help you to reduce the attack surface across each of your resources. That, of course, include Azure virtual machines, non-Azure servers on-premises machine, SQL Server on-premises, Azure PaaS services such as Azure SQL, storage accounts, Key Vault, app services, IoT devices, and containers, and Kubernetes, lots of services. But today's talk will focus more into the infrastructure on-premises, the hybrid workloads. We'll not cover about the PaaS services in today's talk. So where each type of resource is assessed differently and has its own security standards. Actually, Azure Security Center team works closely with each product group who is responsible for a specific workload. For example, the storage team, they get the security best practices to protect that workload, and then they can expose them via security recommendations. So who better than the storage account team to tell us which things we need to verify in order to protect the storage account, right? So this is very important to know. Then it comes, security recommendation, it comes the security score. And recently Microsoft enhanced security score in Azure Security Center. Security score actually is how to analyze how well one is protected from various threats. A security score is very helpful. So with so many services offering security benefits, it's often hard to know what step to take first to help secure and harden your workload. And Azure Security Score reviews your security recommendation that we talked about in the previous slide and prioritize them for you, so you know which recommendation to address first. A security score helps you assess your workload security postures, which you can use as a KPI, key performance indicator, to help you measure and track your security over certain period of time, for example, a week or month or year, so you know if your security score is going up or down. And how security score calculation works. Security Center mimics the work of a security analyst, reviewing your security recommendation and then apply an advanced algorithm to determine how crucial each recommendation is. And then Security Center is constantly reviews your active recommendation and calculates your security score based on them. So the score of a recommendation is derived from its severity and from security best practices that will affect your workload security the most. And Security Center also provides you with an overall security score presented as a percentage, as shown in this slide, where actually the overall security score is an accumulation of all the recommendations scores, and you can view your overall security score across your subscription or management groups, depending on what you selected. So now I will jump quickly, show a quick demo about the security score and the recommendation. I believe many of you are already familiar with Security Center. So actually, Security Center is two different things. So the first one, very important to understand, is playing the role of cloud security posture management, or to sustain your security posture management, which refer as CSC, SSPM. And the second one is cloud workload protection, the CWPP. So those are the two main pillars and value proposition for Security Center. What you see here in the main dashboard, this tool has three different areas. The first one is policy and compliance, resource security hygiene, and the last one is threat protection. If we start to look at the Cloud Security Posture Management, CSPM, then Azure Security Center will give you an idea of how well your environment is secured, which is running on Azure and non-Azure, non-Azure resources that you onboarded to Security Center. What you see here is the overall secure score, which is my subscription where I have 38%. And the overall secure score is to give you the overview about what you have deployed in Azure and non-Azure resources. So how the overall secure score is impacted, Microsoft has created a list of recommendations which are grouped under recommendation, are grouped under security controls. So this is the enhanced view of secure score. As you can see, the secure score here, and then they group multiple security controls under different recommendations. Security control. And then from the cloud security perspective, Azure Security Center is what you should always enable on all your Azure subscription because it's free and it will give you a great overview about how how secure your environment is. Now the thing is, as soon as you start creating new resources in Azure, you should always make sure that also the new resources have already the same set of security recommendation. For example, in this example here, if we look at the enable MFA security control, I have enabled MFA for the user account which has the right permission. However, but only 3 of 5 MFA with owner permission. So here you can see red. So the owner permission is not MFA enabled for that account. So MFA is enabled for owner permission. This will apply to any subscription in the scope. So here I have 8 subscriptions. So it will be applied on the scope for all subscription you selected. And now if we create a new user account and you give them the respective permission on the subscription and they are not MFA enabled, your secure score will immediately drop, right? Because you have now a new account you created and under MFA security control, which is not MFA enabled. This is also true for other security controls as well, such as storage account. That we'll talk about storage ATP later in today's about Azure to protect Azure Files. If you look at the encrypt data transit, here you can see that all the storage account, secure transfer to storage account should be enabled. So this I have a 19 healthy resources. So encryption and encrypted in transit is enabled for all those 19 resources. So this is for another security control to look at. So as I said earlier, everything in terms of cloud security posture management, CSPM, is part of the free tier of Azure Security Center. There is also the Azure Security Center standard tier, which you have to pay for, of course, and this will add the regulatory compliance. If you go back to the overview, so with Security Center standard tier, you get the regulatory compliance here and threat protection. So with threat protection, Security Center leverage and Security Center with the threat protection leverage actually behavior analytics logic in the background to determine any suspicious activity that could lead to potential attacks. The demonstration, the screen is moving. Good. So it's using behavior analytics and which is logic to trigger any security suspicious. It will go into under security alerts and it will be grouped by severity from low to medium to high. So and then you can sort whatever detect and get by threat protection. And in the regulatory compliance, which is also paid option for standard tier, it was Microsoft will do compliance against several compliance standards. As you can see here, we have a lot of standards starting from Azure CIS, ISO 27001, PCI DSS for credit card and online payments, the famous NIST, a framework, and also you can also add your own regulatory compliance. So you, under managed compliance policy, you go to whatever area subscription or on the root management group, for example, and you can add any industry and regulatory compliance. For example, here I added manually the NIST framework and the latest Azure CIS. You can also create your own custom initiative policies, and it will show as well in the same dashboard of the regulatory compliance. As you can see here, I have created this new policy for security resource group audit log. So all the resources that they don't have the resource group log, it will show. As you can see, I have only one policy, so you can add as much as possible. This is custom policy, and I have 18 of 20 resources failed. And please note very carefully as well that if you are, for example, if we took the ISO 27001, here does not, if you get all green, does not make you compliant with ISO 27001 and pass the audit. So the green means it's already done, and the red means, for example, here segregation of duty. A maximum of 3 owners should be designed for your subscription. So have it passed. If you have red, then you still things to do that you need to be compliant. But as well as you can see also, we have another one are in gray area. So this is very important to note here, that not all of them will be available to you, because some of them require a manual work and coordination with your internal processes at your organization, and coordination. For example, if you look at the HR, human resource security, this is something, of course, cannot be done with security tools such as Security Center. So this is something related to your internal processes and to your information security management system, ISMS, internally. So this is our three main of the Security Center. Now let's move on to hybrid workload protection. So we saw a quick overview about the Security Center main pillar and what can do for us. Now let's see how can we onboard resources, especially in the hybrid talks. We are talking about virtual machine to Security Center. So onboarding VMs, Security Center collects data from your Azure and non-Azure resources, computers to monitor for security vulnerabilities, system updates, and threats. And data is collected using the Microsoft Monitoring Agent, MMA agent. Before it was Operation Management Suite agent, now it's MMA agent, which reads various security-related configuration and event logs, security event logs from your system, and copy the data to your log analytics workspace for analysis. And by default, Security Center will create a new workspace for you. So when you automatic provision, as you can see, you can also automatic provisioning, enable it under data collection. Then Security Center install the Microsoft Monitoring Agent on all supported Azure VMs and the new one that is will create in the future. So automatic provisioning is strongly recommended for Azure resources. And data collection is only needed, very important, data collection is only needed for compute resources, VMs, virtual machine on premises or in Azure or in other cloud, as well as virtual machine scale sets on Azure, IaaS container, and non-Azure computer. It's only required workspace. However, for past services, workspace is not, data will not be stored in the log analytics workspace. And as of today, for non-Azure computers, you need to install the MMA agent manually. And the good news, Microsoft announced last year that they are working on auto-provisioning capability to onboard for other cloud, AWS, Amazon, EC2, and Google GCP VMs. But today, you need to install the agent manually on those if you have workload on premises and other cloud. Of course, you can automate with PowerShell, but there is no onboarding from the portal that you can immediately install the agent. But the good things with this new insight into your VMs, Azure Security Center will provide additional recommendation related to systems update status, for example, OS security configuration, and endpoint protection. We'll talk later about endpoint protection, which provided by Macro Defender ATP, as well as generate additional security alerts as soon as the agent is installed on the VM. Now, to onboard, the good thing that we can leverage Windows Admin Center. Windows Admin Center that helps to automate that onboarding process for your VMs. A lot of servers that you have already on premises, we can leverage that great tool, which actually yesterday we got the latest release, 2007, 2007. And this shows the latest capabilities here. You can use Windows Admin Center. Actually, they announced it last October 1910. So with version 1910, if you already have it, you can start using onboarding on-premises servers with Azure Security Center from Windows Admin Center. And of course, you need to have the Azure Security Center extension installed. We'll see later a quick demo about how to onboard using Windows Admin Center. We talk about endpoint protection. The good things about that Macro Defender ATP, the great endpoint protection, which is designed to help enterprise networks to prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. So Macro Defender ATP is very, very big product and is specifically full endpoint protection and response, EDR. Which is available on a range of operating systems, Windows 10, Mac OS, Linux, which is in public preview right now, iOS and Android even, so which is now both in private preview. The platforms offer preventive protection, post-breach detection, and automated investigation. And Azure Security Center teams works closely with Defender ATP for endpoint protection, which is part of the standard tier. So as soon as you onboard any VMs, whether on premises or in Azure, you will get Defender ATP license, which is part of the $15. We'll see later about the pricing that every VM you onboard to the standard tier in Azure Security Center, you need to pay $15. And the Defender ATP license and sensor will be activated as soon as the agent is installed on this machine. Here she's showing the site with Defender ATP. You can get the alert, you can see in Security Center, but for more advanced alert detailed, as you can see here, which is great, from Security Center, you can get immediately URL to go to the Defender ATP portal and go to investigate further and see detailed overview. So this is great about how to have a single management pane of glass between those two products. So let's jump to a quick demo for these two features. So to onboard, let's see quickly how to onboard. So here I have Windows Admin Center. Good. I have the latest release, which is 2007. And very important to look is about the extension. You need to see that you have installed the latest Security Center, which is actually get released now to 2.0.6. which is this here installed environment, and you, of course, you need to have registered and connected to Azure, sign into your Azure subscription, and then you can browse to any server which is onboarded to Windows Admin Center. For example, if I take a server here, this is Core Edition server. We get now the latest, nice. So Microsoft changed the icon with Windows Admin Center. Now we can see the latest icons for all the hybrid services in the Windows Admin Center, and we are interested here in Azure Security Center. So first, to look if you have the agent is installed. If not, it will immediately connect it to your subscription in Azure. So here I get connected immediately. You can choose which subscription to onboard. I choose the appropriate subscription, and then I will, when you select subscription, it will give you you can use the existing workspace or create a new one, which is great. So you don't need to go and provision and go to the Azure portal. Everything can be done from a single portal. And Windows Admin Center is free, and it's very high to have this integration with multiple Azure hybrid services. So for here, I will use the existing workspace that I have, this one, and we go. So 2 selection, that's it. And boom, you proceed to set up. Actually, is within very few, less than 1 minute, this configuration, the agent will be installed on that server, and it will be start reporting to done. See, very fast. So really, I'm surprised. If I want to go install the agent manually, because it's available, you can go to Azure Security Center and download the MMA agent and install it, and put your workspace ID and so on. Manual approach should take a lot of time, more than this couple of seconds that now I have onboarded a new server to Security Center. And then after a while, you can, if there is any alert or recommendation, it will show up here. I'll browse to different servers that I have already onboarded earlier. See this one. And go to Security Center to see if we have a couple of security alerts. Oh, recommendation. We have 1 recommendation. Good. Since I have, this is also great, really. I will talk about it later about the SQL, because this server is a SQL server as well. So you get a recommendation, and you can go immediately see them from here. So Microsoft have enabled deep linking, so you can go immediately to the portal, to that specific recommendation, and see for that specific server what you need to do. So immediately it will go to that portal, as well as for any alert. You can see I have here suspicious PowerShell activity detected. You can also go click on that one and go to that to the threat protection security alert, and see that alert that I have here. Maybe compromised host. You can see what the command has been. So everything is from a single pane of glass. So this is Azure Security Center and Admin Center, how you can leverage that great tool. So the next one is the Defender ATP. So Defender ATP, actually, so on the pricing and settings, since we are talking about on-premises servers, and on-premises servers or non-Azure computer are reporting to a workspace. So they're not under subscription. So whatever you choose, in which workspace you want to have this data stored. For example, here, I'm using that workspace that I onboarded to that server. Here I have the pricing tier. Here I'm using the standard. So with the standard pricing tier for non-Azure computer and servers, you will get this one, continuous and Azure Secure Score. Even if you have on-premises server and you don't want to use the standard, you'll get those two for free. Continuous assessment and security recommendations. You can address your security recommendation to increase and strengthen your security posture. And if you enable the standard tier, you can see only 2 things you get with the standard tier for on-premises or non-Azure computers, which is virtual machines and SQL Server on-server. So SQL Server installed on premises, it also you get vulnerability assessment and threat protection that we'll talk about later. So these are enabled, so this is very important. And with Defender ATP, as soon as you install the agent, automatically you get also the Defender ATP, as I mentioned earlier. So here, if I look at, let's see, I have here that I already simulated an attack a couple of days ago about on-prem servers. You can see here even the logo for the on-premises server. That is not an Azure resource. So that VM, I got a user account created under suspicious circumstances. So I created an account using command lines, and then I get that this is a medium severity classified, and all the machine and what files and how for this system. You see the command, and then it will give you to immediately go to investigate the alert in Windows Defender ATP. Actually, the naming is still Windows Defender ATP. Actually, is Microsoft Defender ATP. So when you click, as soon as you click on that link, you go immediately to the Defender ATP, which is a different portal, and you need to have access to that portal. Sometimes the person who have access to the Azure Security Center portal does not have access to Defender ATP portal. So this is the Microsoft Defender Security Center portal, where you can go and learn more about that suspicious activity that you can see now. User account has created, suspicious user account. You can see all the commands. Really, this is great to all the commands that were run on that system. And you can also get all details. You can see here the details.
Charbel, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If there is an alert in Azure Security Center,
yes.
this alert is also raised in ATP or not?
Yes, it raised as well. Exactly, it raised as well in ATP. So it raised here in Security Center, and also it is raised in so here under incidents. You can see that I have incidents here, suspicious PowerShell command on one endpoint. So you can see the device. So under devices, you can see the same. So it's the alert will be also triggered and Defender ATP as well. And you can see the full detail about what happened, which user, which kind of commands run. So it's really Defender ATP is where actually the investigation and more details at Security Center. Security Center will give you, okay, that you get that alerts here, what resource, you can take action. Can give you what to mitigate the threats, what you can prevent future attacks, give you recommendation what to do on that particular server, and you can also trigger automated response with Logic App. We'll talk about later about Logic App for automation, for example. And if this was false positive, for example, someone is doing, let's say, pen testing or in the company, you can also suppress this alert. So you can see.
And if you have a connector with Azure Sentinel, does it work?
Yes.
Also?
Yes. Well, the Sentinel is covered at the end of this presentation today. And yes, we'll see that there are a couple of steps. Also, the data from Security Center, it will can leverage in Sentinel. And when you can also connect Defender ATP, because Defender ATP is not only for Sentinel, a huge product. And you can connect Defender ATP to Sentinel and Security Center also to Sentinel. So the alert showing in Security Center here, it will also show in Sentinel. Okay. And you need to make extra addition. We'll see it later. So this is the Defender ATP and how you want to go to it. Good. Now, moving to another scenario. So those all scenarios that I selected for this today, everything about VMs and hybrid capability. So a lot of features for Azure, but most focus about data center, private cloud, hybrid services. One of the great features, and I see a lot of get unnoticed and few customers using, is adaptive application control. And one of the biggest challenges of dealing with a whitelisting application, how to maintain that list. I believe everyone on this call today is very familiar with the traditional approach where we use the app locker, which is a very good solution, of course, but it still has the overhead of keeping up with the application and making the initial baseline work properly for your needs. While with adaptive application control, Security Center leverages machine learning, which is going to learn how the existing application behave on your servers. And is going to suggest a list of applications that you should be whitelisted based on some patterns, behaviors, and also security analytics. That's very important because you want to make sure that you don't have the wrong applications running or unwanted applications running on your servers. And you want to make sure that if there is any known vulnerable application, you should be immediately notified. And this capability works for Windows and Linux, and as well on premises. So this is great capability, so you can leverage. And I'll mention very clear later in the demonstration that this can be used in two modes, audit mode and enforce mode. But recently, Microsoft suspended the enforce mode, which is only using audit mode, where you will be notified, but it will not block the application. Why they stopped the enforce? And I don't have a clear idea why it stopped for now. It was actually enforced if you have Azure VMs deployed in Azure. But for non-Azure resources, such as on-premises, audit was always there. But the enforce is it stopped now for Azure. The next great capability is file integrity monitoring, or FIM referred to as. So why to use it? File integrity monitoring helps you to monitor the registry and files of your operating systems. So because some files shouldn't change regularly on your servers, right? And if they are changed, that might be evidence of an attack. For example, if someone modified the configuration of the logging system, that is suspicious. If someone installed code, whatever, on the system, also suspicious activity. And in fact, on Linux system, most changes happen on the etc directory. Under etc directory 3 should be viewed with some also suspicion. And file integrity monitoring feature in a security center will alert you when specific files are changed, and will alert you also when certain Windows registry entry are also changed as well. This feature is part of a standard tier of security center, is not part of the free tier. And great important to note here, as a side note, file integrity monitoring, as you can see here, FIM, under the famous regulatory compliance PCI DSS certification, some auditors may require it to be covered, not only flat files, but also changes to the Windows registry. And FIM in Azure Security Center will address that for you, which is great. Now, security events. Also, Security Center, and we'll see it when you need to specify it, collect Windows OS security events from Windows. So very important to choose which data collection tier that you want to use. For data privacy collection, you can also choose where you want to store, which geographic region, which workspace is deployed. You can specify, because when you select the data tier, you can specify which workspace. You can use the build default one, or you can create a new one, and based on which region you want to have that local analytics workspace. You can also use cross-subscription. So, for example, this is useful if you are using a centralized workspace. For example, let's say you have one workspace across your entire organization. It will work across the subscription. It's not only tied to single subscription. And storing data in log analytics might incur additional charges for data storage. So very important to choose the right tier policy. There are actually four, as you can see in the slide here, there are 4 tiers security events. The first one, which is of none, which is very obvious, none, which is no security errors and no information from the operating system logs or app locker logs, and it's disabled security event storage. So there is no events. Of course, it's not recommended to use that option, that tier. The minimal one is a smaller set of events, fewer events than the common. We'll talk about the common, the next one. Although Microsoft aren't sure how many fewer or what types of events are omitted here. So Microsoft work with many customers to ensure that this configuration surfaces enough events that successful breaches are detected, and that's important. So low volume events are recorded. However, logout events are not recorded. For example here, so it doesn't support a full user audit trail. However, it's the recommended one, which is the common one. Here, when you select this option, Security Center surfaces a filtered subset of events, and Microsoft considers these events, including login, logout event to the system, to provide sufficient detail to present a reasonable audit trail. So other events such as Kerberos operation, security group changes, and more are included based on industry consensus as to what constitutes a full audit trail. Sometimes when you do analysis, a full audit is required by auditor. And the last one, all events, this is if you want to collect everything, all security events. So in other words here, if you choose this option, there will be no filtering. So all events will go to your local. So it's very important selecting data collection tier. It's also affect the pricing and the additional storage that will be in the local analytics workspace. And the MMA agent will still collect and analyze the security event required for threat protection, regardless of which tier of security event you choose here to store in your log analytics workspace. So choose to store security events in your log analytics workspace will enable investigation, search, auditing of those events in your log analytics workspace. We'll see now how can we trail a security breach from local workspace. And about the charges here, actually by default, I'm using the pay-as-you-go model, which is the 30 days free data ingestion for Security Center. And it gives you the first 31st days and then the estimated monthly cost. And also it will cover, if you are using Azure Sentinel, you have the first 90 days free. Of course, you can change the plan based on your needs, for how long you want to keep the data. Now let's jump to this quick demo about adaptive application control. So adaptive application control, actually, it is part of, it is under the advanced cloud defense, and which is a standard tier. Here you can find the adaptive application controls. And you can see here you have configure, recommended, and no recommendation. And here, under recommended, you can see which subscription or which group by default is showing the state and the severity, where you can go to review that group. You can see which machine you want to bring. You can recommend application that by default detected. And if you want to enable that adaptive application control, you click audit. So it will be in audit mode, as mentioned earlier. And when you create audit to specify to that group, it will be under the configure. So here I have a lot of audit enabled for multiple Azure resources, VMs, and Azure Arc as well, and non-Azure resources. For example, here, as you can see, I have 2 machines under that group. Protection mode is always auditing, no enforcement, and the alerts. So if you click on this group, you can see that the recent alerts, you can see script MSI violation audited. You can see that what happened. So this is what recorded last week. You can see adaptive application control policy violation was audited. You can go investigate, and it will tell you which environment, severity of it, when it was happened. For example, if you look at it at the first one, you can see the attacked resource. This is the server. And then we can see all details about what has happened. Here, actually, the hash of the location, which user changed it, and the detail of that, which user was logged in, which is the file impacted. You can see if this false positive or the really, for example, in this case, I actually updated that file. So it's on audit mode. You can see if it's false positive. You can go ahead, for example, and then whitelist it. If you go back to we can see also the same settings. You can see all the machines. So I have grouped multiple non-Azure on-prem machine under the same group. We have 2 servers. You can also see the publisher allow list rules. You can also click additional rule. So this is for publisher. You can have publisher rule or path rule. For example, and the path rule, allow list, I don't have any. You can go add rule, for example, and say, okay, this path, you need to specify to be a valid path. Let's say C temp file script.ps1. Okay, so allowed user. So you can tell, so if it's false positive, you can go here and add the rule to make sure this does not anymore trigger an alert on auditing violation. So you can customize based on your needs. And if there is also a hash, you can add also hash allow list. And for the group settings, you can also here check which subscription. You can also update the group name. It will tell you this is which kind of type OS. So you can see Windows here, also Linux. Environment type, non-Azure, it's on premises. And file type protection mode. It's protecting exe file, MSI, script files, and only audit mode. There is no enforcement. You can go and configure if you want to be more granular what you want to detect. Good. So this is adaptive application control. Yes, you can divide group based on this one, whatever you need. And also, if there is no recommendation, it will tell you, okay, this agent is missing. Under no recommendation, okay, you have a couple of VMs. For example, the agent is missing, so not able to give you a recommendation if you to add application control enabled audit mode. Now the second one is the file also integrity monitoring, FIM, which is also under advanced cloud defense. This is really a very cool security feature that you can also enable. The file integrity monitoring actually is going to be disabled by default on your log analytics workspace. And you have to manually enable it. So here I have enabled on 1. You can see upgrade plan. So this is part of, again, of standard tier, similar to advanced adaptive application control. So here I have it enabled to this log analytics workspace. Good. So log analytics workspace should be in standard tier, and then you enable tier. It's a two-step process. And then when you enable the file integrity monitoring, you are targeting all the virtual machines that belong to that specific workspace. That's why when you have multiple workspaces, you have to enable it to enable it once on each of the workspace. And once you enable and initialize it, you need to wait to take around. So here I enabled last week. It take around 1 hour to complete. So not immediately will be visible here. So here, as you can see, before we jump to the server exchange, let's go to the configuration. So that log analytics workspace. You go to settings and you start having a lot of settings to configure. There are a lot of default settings by Microsoft. So this is one should be enabled. Recommendation, for example, Windows registry. So they give you this recommended group. Okay, it will look on this. This one is enabled. If it doesn't make sense for you, you can enable it to track that registry. This is false. However, security, those by default, security, all of them are true and enabled. So they are tracked. If there are any changes to those registry keys, you will get, you see the changes. Of course, you can go add whatever registry key you want, custom group, give it a name, whatever you want. And the second one is Windows File. Windows File also by default, Microsoft has a couple of built-in security, which I enable. And here I have added a custom group, and I give it a pass stamps.
Charbel, quick
yes.
question. Could you enable the standard tier only on a workspace instead of a subscription?
Yes, great question. So here, let's jump back. So here we can see under pricing subscription. Since we are talking about Azure, non-Azure VM on premises, it's only available through a workspace. So you can see here, log workspace. I'm working with this one demonstration. You can see the pricing tier is enabled per workspace, not per subscription. So this is the log analytics workspace in this case, and I have enabled the standard tier for this one. And that VM actually on premises is reporting to that log analytics workspace, where I'm able to take a benefit of file integrity monitoring and adaptive application control. Clear? Good. Yeah, so I enabled the standard tier on log analytics workspace instead of subscription. This is more actually a scenario for on-prem and non-Azure resource or other cloud environment. So again, you can add whatever custom path you need, and then recursion is, then you need to have it, for example, in this case, I specify that I want to have ctamp, so all files under ctamp star type is not file or folder, in this case folder. So all the folders I want to track under that specific path here. A recursion, and additionally option about you can also upload file content. Why? I will talk about why file content in a bit. Then Linux file as well, similar to Windows file, you have also Linux files. Some of them are by default, are tracked, and some of them also you can go and also add similar to Windows file additionally. Now come to file content. File content actually where this is the file change tracking system Microsoft use to enable to identify the change of the file. Here it requires a storage account. Of course, the data, how much it will be there, this is additional storage. So you need to have a storage account and you need to link it to it. So it's already linked in my scenario. And let's see, this is here, jump to it. Not this one. So I'm using that storage account. So I enable storage account, and now all the changes automatically Azure Security Center will create a blob container for you in the background, of course in private mode. And you can see all my servers. I have on-prem, I have on Azure, all of them are now, you can see them created a folder for every server, and it will give you all the file that get changed. You can see Explorer, SVG Ghost. It will keep monitoring and you leverage that storage account in the backend. So how much file you have, it will, of course, this one, Linux VM, lot of files, all of them are available here. So this actually using the file content where it's keep tracking of those changes. And finally, the Windows services. This also, it will collection frequency if there is any Windows Server changes between 10 seconds to 30 minutes. This is very important. Sometimes the attacker will have a service created, so also will keep also tracking to the Windows services. So after the settings are in place, you will be able to see the changes for any under servers or changes. Under server, you can go to specific. You can see here I have 163 file changes. You can go to that server, and then it will take you to the log analytics workspace that I enabled the standard tier to this. And you can see now I have all the changes. It looks under files and registry. Of course, you can customize. So I want to look, this is a lot of registry changes. I have a query here that I want to look only for files changes. You can create your own query. And let's say change the custom range to the last, let's say, starting 1st of July until today, and then run the query. You can see here, 5th of July, for that particular server, I have a file change, and I can see what kind of file and what. Do you remember that I have previously showed under C custom Windows files? So I added that file because I want to track it. So that's why I can see now that this file get tracked here and what the path of the file and a lot of details. This file was added. I actually copied that file under that path, and you can see all the ACLs, whatever, showing details about this file. Now, under changes here, this show simple visualization, but only for last 100 changes. It does not go into more detail. This is simple view. It's also filtered by a lot of servers, a lot of types. If you want to look, for example, FSRV01 in this case, so it gives me all the changes happen. So this is, for example, registry key that get changed, type, registry modified, added. You click on it, you can see what was did not exist before. Now it was added. So there's no value before. This was added. This one was modified. So you can see the value before and the value after. Okay. And if you want to go more in depth, details, as I showed previously, you click here, and it will take you immediately to that log analytics workspace, and it will run that quick query for you. Of course, you can go more granular. You can add which computer you can go and investigate about the changes more in this. So you enable the standard key on the log analytics workspace. So under data collection, you see. Data collection, here we don't have auto provisioning. Auto provisioning is only for Azure resources on the subscription level. So here I'm collecting all events. All events are getting collected. All security events from my system are getting collected. And if you want to know, for example, let's say you want to investigate more, so this all are stored in Azure Security Center. I can go, for example, here, and I can see run that query. For example, I want to look for all event ID 4688. This is for Windows process creation events, where the subject and filter by time-generated computer name. So I can see that this.
Charbel, wait,
yes.
Wait a sec. I had an issue with the streaming.
Okay.
Just wait.
It's a good time, so I can drink.
Yeah. Okay, it's good.
Good. Perfect. So, yeah, about the system monitoring that I mentioned about this the event that you collect is based on the data tier that you specified actually here. Here I'm collecting all events, including app local events, so everything. So what you can go, if you want to audit and trail and go more into trail, so you can see that I want to look for every Windows process creation, and then it will give me detail for specific computers, and see that on 20th of July, that the user ran who am I, and then he types site system info, then he typed Ghost to see the RDP session, then he ran PowerShell, then he opened Mozilla Firefox, and then he opened the explorer.exe, and then if you go more details, you can see that he also fired all the application, then he opened PowerShell, then he added a new user, administrator, and then he had another user, administrator, to make to hide himself, and then so you can see all the audit trails, and then he go and he opened the URL and CSC. So this you can see how you can go track all detail what he typed on the command line on that VM. So it's really powerful capability to go and leverage that powerful feature. Good. Next, advanced data security for SQL Server. ADS for short. This is actually one of the many features that is included in Security Center that falls under the cloud workload protection platform, CWPP, which is really something you must also consider for your SQL machine, whether they are running on Azure or also on premises. The good news that around 1 month ago, this feature was released for on-premises. It was earlier for Azure public preview last year, and now it's available also for on-premises. So advanced data security provide two important security features. One is vulnerability assessment, and the second one is advanced threat protection. Security vulnerability assessment scan your database for security vulnerabilities and expose any deviations from best practices, such as misconfiguration for the database, you give excessive permissions, and unprotected sensitive data. And then resolving these vulnerabilities can greatly improve your database security posture. On the other hand, advanced threat protection is a detection service that is continuously monitors your SQL Server for threats such as SQL injection, SQL brute force attacks, and privilege abuse. This service provides action-oriented security alerts in Security Center with detail of suspicious activity and guidance on how to mitigate the threats. And there is also important to note about the vulnerability assessment, because the scanning time it is scheduled by design from Microsoft Security Center team is to run by design once per week on Sunday. So the vulnerability assessment to look onto the recommendation and expose if you have any vulnerabilities is run on once per Sunday. And also 3 weeks ago, if they also worked on the public preview for the Azure Arc enabled server. You can sign up now in the preview. You can see here on the link, you can go, you need to fill some details. You can sign up when you onboard any SQL Server on premises using Azure Arc. You can also enable immediately from Security Center to enable advanced data security for SQL vulnerability and advanced threat protection. And finally, as showed before in the demo, that the Security Center pricing setting page should be also on the standard tier, and as well as selecting the SQL Server on machine. We'll see it later. SQL Server on machine is enabled because you can also enable for only on-prem servers without SQL Server, or both of them, or one or the other. So you have the flexibility to choose if you want to pay for SQL Server protection as well. Now, the greatest feature, which is last week on 13th of July, the ATP for Azure Files. Azure Files, which is this great features. Years ago, the Security Center team announced the ATP for storage for blob container server. If any malicious data or files are added to the blob container server, it will detect based on hashes. And 2 weeks ago, they extended this feature also to protect Azure Files. and Azure File Share. And this also protects Azure File Sync deployment on premises. So we are about the hybrid and Azure File Sync. I believe everyone knows, and Roman knows about it, how it's a very cool feature, our Azure File Sync, which is leverages Azure File Share in the backend. So this layer of protections allows you to protect and address concerns about a potential threat to your storage account and Azure Files. And it is incredibly easy to enable ATP for your storage account. You can use the Azure Portal.
Does it work on Azure NetApp Files?
No, NetApp File, not yet.
Okay.
Only for Azure Files. Great feedback. I will pass it across.
Okay.
So you can use you can enable it with the Azure Portal and Azure Policy, PowerShell REST API. You can enable it, very simple to enable it. And the good things about the storage, it's not, you can, for example, just say you have a storage account, which is of course tied to a subscription. You can enable it on a subscription level. So if you have, let's say, 10 storage account, and you enable it on subscriptions, so all those 10 storage accounts will get ATP or storage enabled. However, if you don't want, you have, for example, a couple of storage accounts which are not important or for demo and test, you can disable the ATP for storage on the subscription level under pricing and setting tier, and then go to advanced security under the specific storage account. I will show that later in the demo, and you can enable the security on per storage account. And also very important to note here that this feature, the malware detection service for Azure Storage, looks for known malware hashes. It does not, however, scan each individual file to detect malware. So it looks only for the hashes. So we hope, I believe a lot of feedbacks reported to Microsoft that this service hopefully will improve later to scan each individual file, and the most importantly, to clean them as well. For example, I have an Azure file share, and I have a malware there. I want to clean it as well. I don't want only, okay, get notified, I have a malware, but I also agree to clean it. So this, hopefully, it will come in the future. So let's have a quick demo for advanced security for SQL. Okay, so here in this example, let's go to, I will go to, is it this one? As of today, okay, so SQL, for SQL, it's under data and storage, but as of today, the UI is not surfacing the SQL Server on-prem. So nothing different than normal standard SQL Server, standard VM. So it's similar to any VM on-prem you onboard. But here you can see, you can select SQL Server, SQL Virtual Machine, or manage instance if you have SQL also PaaS and Azure SQL PaaS, but does not show the SQL on-prem yet in this portal. However, when I go to recommendation and I look for vulnerability assessment, I go to vulnerability assessment, security control. And the remediate. So I can see here that I have vulnerability on your SQL Server on machine. So SQL Server on machine means that SQL Server on premises or another cloud environment, or as well in SQL in IS VM in Azure as well. You see, it's a preview feature now. I have one resource. If I go click on it, I have my VMM server, which is this one, affected. If I can go see, you can see it will show me. This is my databases. Okay, and the last scan time, as I mentioned before, that the vulnerability assessment scanning is once per week on Sunday. So 19 July was Sunday. So, and you can see then, let's say I have here to give me what the recommendation, what the vulnerability. If I look to my VMM database, I can see I have an excessive permission should not be granted, public code, and transparent data encryption should be enabled. Those are the findings that the vulnerability findings for me.
You are the last one on earth using virtual machine manager.
Yeah, actually, this I have it in my environment where I can use the database only to look. I have vulnerability for my SQL. So, Yep, and the good thing that the benchmark is leveraging the famous FedRAMP benchmark framework for security, and also the CIS Center of Information Security CIS benchmark. So Microsoft used those external to give you recommendations to the finding. For example, SA should be disabled. Okay, so the vulnerability assessment 1058. So it gives you ID, severity, the status, what you want to do, and also it will give you the query that you can run on your SQL server. But of course, don't do it in production. So make sure before you run that SQL query in your environment, make sure that you know what you are doing, and to disable, for example, SA account. This is like king of the kingdom key SA. So this is validated by the benchmark, which is recommended by CIS and FedRAMP to have SID disabled. So this is the vulnerability assessment, which is great. This is the first one. The second one is threat protection. What I will do now, I will try to attack my server. I have a demo. I have a script that will try to SQL injection my SQL server, and as well as brute force attack. Two different attack. So I am attacking my VMM server. So since this one, no one is using it. And now in a couple of seconds, the SQL, if you go to SQL threat protection, of course, you have notification in place, you get email. I have also enabled Logic App. So if I have Teams, so I can look. Boom, here you go. This was, I have now high potential SQL injection. So immediately, because I have linked the Security Center workflow automation, so whatever any alert is coming, it will come to my team channel. For example, you have teams in your company organization, and they don't have access, for example, to Security Center portal. They are a member of a team. So those SOC team, they can go and see the alerts here. The same alert is visible as well under security alerts. So the same alert, if you go here and filter by date, SQL injection. So this one, SQL injection, and SQL potential SQL brute force attempt. You can see details. So I was tracking severity high. This is my server on-prem. So also detecting threat protection. This is also the vulnerability. Environment is non-Azure, on-premises as well. And if you go to any of those details, you can see that what happened, the location, the account that was used. So the attack was coming from the SA account, and a lot of details. And then you can go take action to give you how to mitigate threats, so on and so forth. You can trigger automation response for it. And if it is also testing, we'll talk about later how can suppress this alert. So this is the two capabilities of advanced data security in SQL Server on-premises. The second capability is Azure Files. Azure Files, it's enabled per subscription, of course, not because storage account is tied to a local analytics workspace. Here in my case, I have enabled standard tier for my subscription. You can see all of them enabled, except storage account. I don't want here to enable advanced ATP for all my storage account under that subscription. I disabled here, and then I went to specific storage accounts. So I go to storage. Lot of subscriptions. So this storage account, I went individually to storage account, and then under advanced data security, I enable it. Okay, so this one storage account is enabled for that storage account. And you can see here for that, but I don't have any incident yet for that specific storage account. I will jump to a different storage account where I have already uploaded some files for this demonstration, which is here. This is a France storage account, Roman. So I deployed France Central.
It's a good location.
Yes. So I have here file share. I uploaded a couple of it's very famous to simulate that Azure Files is working correctly, some files, and then immediately as soon as Microsoft detect that the hash is not correct, you can see that also those files are showing here. So you can see that potential malware is uploaded to a storage file share, and also not only for file someone accessing your file share from unusual location. You can go see immediately, it will jump to Security Center alerts. You can see that who accessed that file share. So yes, so this file was accessed from Switzerland. So it gives you who accessed it and give you severity or details. So it will give you only the access as well as any additional files. Good. Next, now, good. Now, what about, we talk about the security posture at the beginning with the protection, detection, and response. Now comes the response part. So how can you automate some of those responses? Here where the workflow automation of Security Center capability comes handy. Actually, this is features came early this year, where you can do workflow automation for recommendation as well as for alerts. You can automate to respond for any security recommendation or any security alerts to trigger, actually. For example, if you take a workload protection as a scenario, you can create a series of action to take as part of a logic app, where you can automate multiple of processes, where to bring your awareness that something happens. As an example, you can isolate a machine that was compromised. Let's say the machine gets compromised via, let's say, RDP brute force attack, and as soon as you receive that alert in Security Center, you can take an action. You can automate that action using the workflow automation. You can isolate that machine from the rest of the workload, for example. You can be creative as much as you want and build automation on top of it. So this is really great capability. And this one was what I'm using actually to any security alert that's coming to Security Center. It's already automatically showing in my Microsoft Teams channel. So my security operation team can see all the alerts. This is automation. Then comes this alert suppression. Alert suppression also was announced at Build last May, Build 2020. This is one of the features that was requested by many customers for a specific use case. Let's say you work in an organization and your company has a red team. When they do once per month, or every 6 months, they do pen tests. They try to attack all the resources in your company to make sure how the security of those resources are. And every time they do a pen test, they got a bunch alerts will come to show on the Security Center. And when you start to look at it, you see, okay, that alert is coming from a legitimate IP that is belonging to one of our red team. And okay, this is it's not a true positive. This is false positive. And my red team doing pen tests, I want to suppress. I don't want to see those alerts. I want to put them in suppressing mode. So they will not be visible, but they will always be in Security Center. So now with this new feature, you can create a suppression rule that will allow you to customize what you want to do. You can have a lot of edit rules. For example, here in my case, okay, I'm doing preview to Azure Files. I want to try it. Okay, let's say enable or disable state. What is the reason for testing? And I want to put also expiration, because you can also let's say maybe 3 to 4 months from now, the red team is not anymore using that IP address or IP range, and now they are using a different one. And now you want to be revisited. You want to revisit those alerts, and maybe if they are false positive. So what happens behind the scene? It's actually Security Center is changing the state from active to dismiss. So all alerts which are not flagged as active won't be visible by default on the dashboard. And if you want to see the alert, we'll show later in the demo how we can also filter them by dismiss, and you can see where the alert will always be there in the dashboard, and you can see them by choosing the filter. And of course, that link show all the security alerts that you can have reference and see them based on your need. And great, you can also add a lot of additional rules. For example, which entity, for example, which IP, which resource, we can be more granular about it. And now comes Azure Sentinel. So at the beginning, a question that, okay, can we leverage Azure Sentinel? And often get asked by customer a common question: what is the value of Security Center compared to Sentinel? I have Azure Sentinel. Do I need Security Center? And a lot of debate. And it's very important to understand and how to position Security Center and Azure Sentinel. This actually is a great diagram from Microsoft, which is giving great illustration on and summarize very well how these two security products fits together. They are used for different scenarios. It's very important to understand the difference between both and how to position one another. Azure Sentinel, which is sit on top, is the Security Information Event Management (SIEM) system, and security as well orchestration and automated response SWAR solution. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, Security Center is around cloud security posture management and cloud workload protection platform scenario, while Azure Sentinel is a SIEM and SWAR event system and orchestration system that sits on top of other, not only for Security Center, but other well for the Defender Cloud App of Security, which is sit on top. And Azure Sentinel will do all the data ingestion, and not only from Security Center, but also from other third-party and Microsoft product as well. So they are complementary to each other, because now that you can have a cloud security posture management and cloud work protection from Security Center, you can take advantage of the security alerts. I'll show you later how to generate by Security Center. It will be shown in Azure Sentinel as well by integrating those products together.
And if you use Azure Security Center and Defender ATP and you have two alerts raised, in Azure Sentinel, do you have two alerts or just one?
This is based on the rules that you create in Sentinel. So you can show you later how you can create rules actually. For example, you can specify if the rule is coming, I don't want to show two rules. You can be granular and create a rule based on your needs. So instead of showing, by default, if you create rule, all of them, you can customize it, all of them will show. However, you can create a custom rule, for example, if coming from Defender ATP from Security Center with specific include or what to include, what to exclude. We'll show later in the demo how you can be more granular. So let's jump quick.
That means that if you have an alert in Azure Security Center and this alert is raised in ATP, so by default you have two alerts raised in Sentinel.
Can you repeat your question? If you have alert in Security Center.
So you have linked Azure Security Center with Defender ATP. You have an alert in Azure Security Center. So by default, in Azure Sentinel, you have two alerts based on the same event.
Yeah, actually, by default, you will not have alert unless you will not see actually incident, not alert, incident. We can show you here in Azure Sentinel workspace. For that workspace, I enable Azure Sentinel. So I have, first of all, of course, data connector. I connected Security Center. So the lot of connectors, huge connectors. So we'll not go into Center is broad topic. So Security Center, you can see Azure Security Center is connected. So this is a connector page, and then you can specify actually which subscription you want to connect. So in my scenario, I connected all my subscription. So I want to ingest all the data, all the alert from Security Center. They come as raw data. So there will no alerting and no incident so far. But then it's recommended to create incidents, which is the next step. So after you connect Azure Security Center connector in Azure Sentinel, you go to the alert, analytic rule, here, and here you can create. As you can see here, I have created a rule, high and medium. So I want all the security alerts in Azure Security Center to show medium, and high to come under incidents. So if I go under incidents, I can see now, you can see, so I have potential SQL injection, potential SQL attack. So all the medium and the alerts, all the medium and high severity are showing in Azure Sentinel. You can see based on my analytic rules I created. So to respond to your question that if you have a Defender ATP and not to show two alerts, you can here adjust the rules. For example, if I create a new rule here, Microsoft incident rule, let's say exclude MS ATP alerts. You give description, of course, enable. So of course you can go here. What here's this scenario where we are connecting to security servers security center, and you can filter by severity any, or you can go custom. So you can say you can see the ATP which is showing here, and this example was it's in detail. Let's see this one. User suspicious account created, this one. So this alert is coming from ATP. I don't want to see this one, for example. Okay, so this one is coming, let's say, medium severity, but let's say, okay, so I know it's coming in medium severity, and include or exclude. Okay, so exclude only exclude specific alert. So only create listing from alerts that do not contain the following text in the alert name. Okay, and the alert name here, what's showing? Let's come back. Alert name. You can count the alert detail about showing, let's say, when the Defender ATP link, for example. You can take this one and put it in the exclusion. Okay, here.
So when you have both products, so Azure Security Center and Defender ATP, you just exclude alerts from a single product.
Yes, for example, and
okay.
because if you connect the Defender ATP as well and you created the rule, then you can see, because then you can create this. Instead of having two rules, you can create logic here and say, okay, if coming Defender, don't take Security Center. Okay, but however, Defender ATP. Okay, keep them coming to show in incidents instead of having double incidents in Azure Sentinel. You can go more better about creating the logic here. So this is from Security Center Sentinel perspective. The next one is about the automation that I mentioned, that you can leverage the automation, workflow automation. This is really huge capability what you can do here, automation. So here as you can see, I'm posting messages, to Microsoft Team. For any alerts that's coming to my subscription, you can go add workflow automation and give it a name, whatever you want, description, choose which subscription, and then where you want to store that, let's say, that configuration for it. And then you want to specify the trigger condition. Trigger condition is based on security alert or security recommendation. For example, I have previously created a security recommendation about just-in-time VM access, for example. I have documented on my blog that if any recommendation showing, let's say, you need to enable a secure management port, I have automatically selected here. Let's say search just-in-time, or just. Here one. Management port. Okay, let's take them out. This resolution problem. Deselect them here and then just can go here, select just-in-time VM access, and then recommendation state. You can specify what kind of recommendation. Healthy or not healthy. So in this case, it's not unhealthy. So when the recommendation is unhealthy, and then what you want to trigger. For example, trigger here. I have a logic app. If I switch back to logic apps, where you can go more granular. So I have here a couple of logic apps where I have logic app behind the scene. If I take my logic app initiate just-in-time VM access and go to logic app designer, you can see I have the default Azure Security Center connector. Which one? When an Azure Security Center recommendation is created or triggered. Okay, I have get the VM location, where is the VM, which subscription, identity, there's a lot of workflows coming behind the scene, fully detailed, and then you can trigger it will be automatically. If someone created a VM and left the port, the management portal open, it will immediately trigger it and close those secure management port for you. I have also another logic app here where I want to restart the VM. Sometimes for system update, you can see the recommendation for your on-premises VMs that require a reboot. It will show also from Security Center recommendation blade. So you can also restart the virtual machine. When the recommendation is created or triggered, this is connector, I get subscription ID, this is group name, virtual machine name, and you can trigger it because from alert you can automate the recommendation or security alert, or also you can trigger the logic app manually if you have money. And the posting message also, I'm posting all the message, all the security alerts coming here, showing in this my team channel are coming also. Any alert is created or triggered, not recommendation here. I have the second one. Any security alert is created or triggered. I need to post this message in my team, and I specify the security channel that I want to use with a lot of details for it. So this is the workflow automation to respond to your incident and recommendation as soon as possible. And the next one was the suppression. So suppression rules, which is also very important. That recently also what released. This is the one here. As I mentioned before, that you can create suppression rule. I have already created multiple suppression rules. For example, preview of Azure File Share. I don't want to see them. I'm using custom storage malware hash reputation. Okay, enabled. I'm testing this one for reason, and it will expire by 4th of August. So after 4th of August, if there is any malware upload to my storage account, it will be showing in the security alerts blade. So I come here now and you go to filter. You can see now dismissed. So I filter by dismissed now and see where are they. It will be shown by all dismiss alert. So this one, I did not upload any, so I don't have any dismiss actually alert yet. So because I created that suppression rule after that I was testing the Azure File Share. And the good thing that after creating that suppression rule, you can validate, simulate, because if the rule is not correct, you can get. So I simulating that rule, validating it, it will give me that I have now 0 of the alert because I don't have any alert related to that particular Azure File Share. So that's why you don't see here any dismiss. As soon now, a new alert will come from today until 1st of August. It will not be visible on the security alert as active. It will be on the dismiss state. And by default, dismiss won't be visible. You need to select them. Only active will show here. So this is because a lot of pen testing or coming external party from the company is coming to do pen testing from this week to this week. You can make sure I don't want to get my security alert with full of alerts and give a lot of false positive alerts showing here. So this is also a great capability. Good. So quick to-do list. As we mentioned at the beginning, is of course good hygiene come first. So you need to make sure to strengthen your security posture and make sure to address all the recommendation and make sure security score to get as much address all the recommendation to get, because not only enough one recommendation, you address multiple recommendations, and most of them, if you're using only Azure, not on premises, it should be also part and have an enforcement in place. No one can deploy, for example, unwanted resource in specific region, or have that security port open and not using that size of VM. This is kind of things that should be also part of deployment, because if you don't use that, have good proper governance in your company, then as soon as you deploy new resources, again, the security posture will drop, and you can see the security score percentage will go down. So this is also very important to make sure it's implemented using workflow as part of the deployment of your resources. Next one, you need to turn on all threat protection on all the resources, whether on premises and Azure. And by default, you can use the free tier, and you get recommendation and already and Azure Security Score by default free. And the third one is start reducing attack surfaces for the VM, whether they are deployed in Azure or on premises, SQL servers, network, just-in-time VM access for Azure resources, adaptive application control, file integrity monitoring. This one you can go one by one. And as we saw earlier, how to integrate with your SIEM system. Some companies use Sentinel, some companies use Splunk. You can Azure Security Center can integrate with third-party SIEM solution. It's not necessary to go with Azure Sentinel, but Azure Sentinel will give you a lot of flexibility, and is cloud native and is more easier to scale, and it's really great. Sentinel, so I recommend integration with Azure Sentinel, and of course, identifying the root cause. And again, so you go back from point 5 to point 1 and start again addressing all the new security that got introduced, and to make sure to raise and what you have learned from this during this workflow process. So you can use it today. Azure Security Center is free, so you can use it and enable for all Azure subscription. So at least you can start make sure that to address all the recommendation, and make sure to strengthen your security posture. Which is give you great continuous security assessment and actionable item to go and protect your resources. However, if you need additional security features such as just-in-time access, VM threat protection, and hybrid workload protection, here you need the standard tier. The standard tier is free only for 30 days. So you can go, for example, kick off free POC for 30 days and try it. And if it's okay, you can continue. You can which VM you want to deploy the agent, you pay per VM you onboard it to workspace, not necessary to have it for all servers. And then, additional Microsoft will automatically start charging. As soon as 30 days pass, you start to pay additional charges, $15 per VM on premises or in Azure, and additionally the storage that you want to incur in log analytics based on the data collection tier that you want to collect from your security events based on the settings that you choose. So this is actually all for today. So I have included a couple of learning resources free using the famous Microsoft Learn. We can go with this, how to identify security threats, resolve security. You can take this module which give you step-by-step and start kick the tires and see how you can protect your servers and virtual machines from brute force attack and malware attacks. And I have also a lot of guides on my blog about them. So I have under Azure Security Center category, I have a lot of blog about it. So you can see I have a step-by-step. You go to Azure File Share, Security Center ATP integration with Defender ATP, adaptive application control, protection SQL Server on premises, file integrity monitoring, a lot of Security Center security score. We did not talk about the security score APIs that also get released soon, also during build, where you can, if you want to have weekly or monthly and report your CISO, the company on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, you can leverage the Secure Score API and integrate it with Power BI to give you really amazing reports where you can share the Power BI about how your Secure Score is going last 7 days, last 30 days for all your subscription. This is also a great capability to leverage those resources. So all the resources you can go here and see a lot of how to protect your resources hybrid. So we'll not cover today about Azure services or PaaS, hopefully the next webinar, but this where you can find a lot of resources. And really appreciate to get your feedback, please. If you have your phone around you, please take a photo for this and give us your feedback. Hopefully this webinar was really useful and you learned from it, and hope to see you in the near future.
So great. I gave you 1 hour, you take 2.
Great, yes. I took the contact more than 1 hour. I said, okay, I am the only one in the session. I am not rushed. I want to cover as much as possible and details to make the sessions valuable. We don't have a tight schedule, another session to start. So I appreciate everyone who stayed late until this hour. So it's already 10 p.m. here. And yeah, I wish you a great night, and hope to see you in the session.
I just have one question. Sorry.
Yep.
Someone asked for some tips about the exam 500.
Yes, tips. Good. I have actually a blog about it, and I have a lot of tips. I don't know if he saw it, but actually, it's a security center, which is part of this topic. So here in the resources, I highly recommend to take those three modules, which will cover you to help you to cover the subject of the domain that will come in AZ500 exam. But AZ500 is not only security center, just to be clear. But these 3 modules will help you to cover the AZ500 exam. And if you go here and search, I have also documented updated based on, because Microsoft actually by next week on July 29th, they will change. They will change the domain objective. So here it's updated. So this is starting on July 29th. This I have documented a lot of tips. What you go to also, I have linked the module to go read about them. And I have also, if you have free LinkedIn Learning, you can go take those 6 modules as well from Microsoft Learn, as well as from LinkedIn Learning. I have included them here, where you can take them here also. And you can try it LinkedIn Now Learning for free. Additional great domain to cover the AZ500. So here for free, all the modules. It's updated. You can also do simulations using SkillMe app, courses and preparation, and Microsoft the releasing book, which is coming very soon. End of this month, usually, will be released. This is pre-order. Will be released. Okay, this is if you want to take the exam now, so wait until 29 of July. Then you can take the latest. The book is coming in September. It looks now. Good, but this should give you enough details to pass the exam. So if you follow this everything, I can guarantee. Of course, if you study, give it really 1 month dedication time to go through all the materials here, resource learning and the video. So whatever is convenient for you, and you can start really. And I mentioned your security center, you don't need to pay. It's enough. You have standard tier, should be enough. They cover also a lot of other Sentinel as well. There is no Microsoft Defender ATP. There is no Office Microsoft 365 security in this exam. It's only pure Azure storage account, Key Vault, application security, encryptions, Azure SQL, Cosmos DB, identity. So this you can see this all the application. Good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roman.
I don't see any other question. So thank you for this presentation. And for attendees, if you liked this session, please give us some thumb up.
Yes.
It helps us to...
Please.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a good night. Bye-bye. Take care.